Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Leon Vainstein speaking from Los Angeles, California. A day in the Trump era is like a year with all previous presidents. A year under Trump is probably equal to a century in any other era, any other period in our 6,000-year history. Today, once again, we'll talk about the riots, who is paying for them, who is organizing them. More and more is becoming known, of course. What should we expect in the near future? Closer to the end, I'll tell you about what the anti-American forces behind the riots have planned for June 14th, which is coming up very soon. It will be a difficult day for the United States of America. I'll show you an announcement about recruiting the daring and reckless. So it's from there? It was a quote from the announcement for the guys in the special unit Sonderkommando in German. So the guys will be paid from $6,000 a week and up. Guess for what? Well, and about the stupidity, the utter complete stupidity, committed by the president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum. If you translate her name into Russian, it's Klava Luksveta or Klava Luchasvetnaya. I think in the Dark Kingdom she would be Luchasvetnaya, cartels. And the fool, sorry, Klavka, who barks at America, well, whatever, that's her business. So, once again about the riots, which the Democrats mostly call peaceful protests against the deportation of murderers and rapists, as well as drug dealers and pimps who are illegally in the United States of America. I have to repeat this. So, these are mostly peaceful protests against the deportation of murderers and rapists, drug dealers, and pimps who are illegally in the United States of America. Good position, party position, yes, in Craigslist, I don't know. I think those who live in North America, so to speak, and in Canada and so on, know what it is, and for the rest, well, it's just whatever. I think it's the most popular, so to speak, online source for jobs. All kinds of job offers, job searching, and things like that. In addition to jobs, there are various things like furniture, cars, etc. Well, it's kind of, so to speak, the most popular directory of things you can buy in Los Angeles. It's divided into all the regions of America and Canada, and, so to speak, each one has its own. So, about 2 months ago, ads started appearing in the Los Angeles section of this very same Craigslist in the general labor section. Well, you couldn't make this up on purpose. And they sounded like this. We're recruiting an extreme group that's currently being built. The word being built is clearly there to show up in searches for construction workers. A lot of construction jobs, both illegal and legal workers, are also trying to find them. So, next it says, we need brave and cool guys. I'm trying to translate this from slang English into Russian. Not necessarily the strongest, but we need the most reckless ones. Reckless is probably the right word. Interestingly, that's correct. They need reckless guys. And then we train them. The group will be activated by a signal, but payment will be made every week after the training is completed, regardless of whether your group is activated or not. Wow, $6,000 plus. Well, actually, it's more than $6,000. And what do you think, what kind of payment do they offer to brave and cool guys, especially the reckless ones? You know, it starts at $6,000, but how high does it go? From $6,000 to $12,500 a week. So what exactly do you have to do to earn $12,500 a week? And you don't need any education at all. You just have to be a cool, reckless guy.
We have breaking news, guys. How does history repeat itself? Of course, we know that none of these rebels, these protesters, ever actually show up. It's obvious, of course. These are always paid protesters and rebels. Once again, we were absolutely right. 2 days ago, I started looking for the ad on Yah, but I couldn't find it. Because usually they post it under the guise of a peaceful protest, but this time they disguised it as a general work section. They were looking for builders to construct a building, apparently, but I was able to find this ad, and here's what it says. Let's take a look. The ad is once again disguised as a general work section. They're looking for the coolest guy in the Los Angeles area. They need exceptionally tough, brave men. For a new crew at the construction site, the pay starts from $6,500 up to $12,500 a week. We're putting together an elite team, the toughest guys in this area. The unit will only be deployed when the situation requires it. But you will get paid every week regardless of that. High pressure, high risk, no room for hesitation. Even more remarkable, Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, went on air and said the following.
Last night, I can tell you, things are calm now, but we don't know where and when the next raids will happen. That's the problem. People in this city have a rapid response network. If they see immigration and customs enforcement, they go out into the street and start protesting.
So Mayor Karen Bass basically confirms that there is a rapid response team. Here she is. Let's continue with the announcement. The announcement also says, we need people who don't break down, don't panic, and don't give up under pressure. And overall, just cool. Dude, physical strength, speed, and endurance are important, but the main thing is psychological resilience. If you're not the biggest guy in the room, but people follow you when everything goes wrong, that's exactly who we're looking for. We recruit those who are already truly tough and ready to stand their ground when it's necessary. However, if necessary, we can train you. What are we looking for? Psychological resilience. You keep your cool under pressure. You don't panic. Bravery. You face danger head on. You don't hesitate. And this is happening not only in the state of California. In fact, it's also happening in Texas. Here's another announcement, and here's an announcement posted for the city of Austin, Texas. Now we know that another protest is taking place in Tampa, Florida. So if you find one like that, post it, report it to the Department of Justice, and tag the right people. Because we know that each of these protesters is being paid.
As of today, it is known that the group Socialism and Liberation is involved in organizing riots in Los Angeles and in other cities, both in California and across the country. These are the same guys who co-organized the pro-Hamas riots at universities in Columbia, there in New York. They are sponsored by Sam, or so to speak, by someone like that. Neville Singham, half Indian, half Cuban, with close ties to both the Democratic Party of the United States and the Communist Party of China. In his youth, he was in the Marxist group Black Revolutionary Youth, even though he himself was not black. But that's what Kamala Harris and other Pakantizi do too, often pretending to belong to popular minorities. The riots were instigated by the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, who called on people to resist. After that, in 1928, the aspiring presidential candidate, governor of California, Gavin Newsom, announced that he had ordered the state law enforcement not to interfere with the rioters, to burn what the fire, which was smoldering here not so long ago, hasn't burned yet. And again, in fact, it's because of this very BAS and Newsom. Naturally, when the mayor and the governor try to stop legally operating federal police forces and do so with the help of arson stones and Molotov cocktails, Washington is obliged to respond. And Trump sent 400 to Los Angeles at first, and then some more after that. In total, as of yesterday, there were 2,000, and now that number is still increasing. Whether he sent National Guardsmen or they're already standing by, so to speak, ready to come here, there are 700 Marines. Accordingly, Heaven, working on the image of presidential candidates, filed a lawsuit against Trump. But what exactly could be the legal issue?
Senior Judicial Analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano, let's go. Good morning, Judge, all right? So we have several sources of authority. The Constitution clearly states that the president is the commander-in-chief of the state militia. Today, that's the National Guard. When it comes to suppressing a rebellion or insurrection, the Insurrection Act of 1807 says the same thing. The Posse Comitatus Act, which basically means power of the county in Latin, or the power of local authorities, states that the military cannot be used for ordinary law enforcement unless the governor of the state makes the appropriate request. So we have different laws here that somewhat contradict each other. Can the president call up the National Guard when federal assets are under threat? Yes, that's exactly why they are called up. What are federal assets? Employees, people on site are being attacked. Are National Guard servicemen trained to maintain law and order? No, that's not the case. They don't know how to detain people. They don't know what to do during arrests. So their main role is to provide support for those who are trained to know whom to detain and how to detain them. Can Gavin Newsom file a lawsuit? Well, anyone can file a lawsuit for anything, of course. I don't think he'll win here. I don't think he'll find a federal judge anywhere in California who will ban what the president just did. All you need to do is watch television like we show every morning. Obviously, it takes significant force to suppress this unrest.
The United States Constitution states that in certain cases, the president of the country can federalize. Well, that is to kind of take over control. That's probably what federalizing means. To transfer control from the state to the federal government, that is, to the state. He can do this with the state militia. Today, the state militia is called the National Guard. Previously, it had other names. And what are these certain cases? The Constitution says riots and uprisings. In 1807, a law was passed clarifying the provision on riots and uprisings, called the Insurrection Act, that is, the law on disobedience, the law on those who do not obey. Sorry, yes, about those who do not obey. That's it. Based on these clarifications, Trump has the right to send guards to assist the federal or local police, and he has the right to send the army. In this case, the Marines can protect federal buildings and property or federal forces. That is, anything federal they have the right to protect, specifically federal facilities. And the target of the attacks is the combat units of the Democratic Party. If you look for who benefits from unrest in the United States, two candidates immediately come up: the United States Democratic Party and the Communist Party of China. Neville Singham, if he is the one financing the riots, is connected to both of them and to others as well. However, this remains an unproven supposition so far, as they say. After Trump's tariffs during his first term, China responded with coronavirus disease releasing, as they say, that lovely disease called coronavirus disease on us. They will try to wage what is called asymmetric warfare against us, and they won't be deterred by anything at all. A week ago, two Chinese scientists tried to smuggle a certain pathogen across the United States border, let me explain, which is considered a biological weapon that could cause serious damage, for example, to rice crops, other crops, and so on. Well, for example, grain and rice. This, so to speak, is a strike that it is theoretically supposed to deliver, causing the destruction of crops and potentially leading to billions in losses and, well, I would say food shortages. People who eat food contaminated with this pathogen will experience nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. It can lead to hormonal disorders, and it can be dangerous for pregnant women, which is also very important. That is, the consequences are severe, affecting huge segments of the population. I think Kitai is working on numerous options in response to the United States' attempt to establish fair trade relations in which they will have to act according to the rules and in accordance with the agreements they have signed. And what do people think about the protests and about who is right? The Republicans and Trump or the Democrats? Both Gavin Newsom and the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass,
are absolutely shocked that Donald Trump is popular on the issue of immigration. And that against the backdrop of unrest in Los Angeles, the deployment of the National Guard and the Marine Corps. Donald Trump's approval rating on immigration issues is positive, and Republicans are more trusted on this issue. Now, I have to say that Gary Enton has become a living meme because basically his style now is to be that guy who says, wow, Donald Trump is popular and right on these issues. Interesting. Is he really trying to do that? Everyone knows that we are extremely left-wing and against Trump. So let's take the guy who's always surprised that people actually like Donald Trump. Maybe this will wake up some of those extremely left-wing fanatics.
American voters believe that the Democrats have no idea whatsoever about the immigration problem. You can just look here more to the point. Who is more trusted on immigration issues, the Democrats or the Republicans? I have 3 different polls on this topic for you. They all say the same thing. Republicans are leading on the issue of immigration. Here it's +6, here it's +6, and here it's even more, +19. No matter which poll you look at, no matter how you look at it, the American public supports the Republicans. The American public supports Donald Trump. This doesn't just apply to the topic of immigration, but also to specific issues where Americans are also on the side of Trump and the Republicans. That's why Donald Trump is eager to join this fight and win seats from Los Angeles.
And what do the Obama supporters say? How do they get out of the messes they've gotten themselves into?
First of all, his tariffs are the biggest tax increase for the middle class in modern history. They're raising prices that he promised to lower. That was his main promise. Now he's embroiled in a debate over inflationary tax breaks for the wealthy, which the country is rejecting, especially because they come at the cost of cutting the Affordable Care Act and increasing the national debt. His administration is also crumbling in other areas. Elon Musk says that he is mentioned in the Epstein cases. He also just accepted a personal bribe of $400 million in the form of a plane from Qatar, a country that finances Hamas. So I think this is the same rambling behavior that we see from him when he really wants to talk about anything except the economy. And that's why I think that when we speak out against how he abuses power, it's important that this still remains part of the discussion.
Yeah, well, I found this for you on Eric Dotras-Atham's tweet, of course. According to the data as of June 4th, Donald Trump has a higher approval rating than Obama and Bush had at the same point in their terms. Why?
Are they lying? That's all we need to know. Trump has higher public support in the country than Obama or Bush had at the same point in their second term. Even though Obama was praised every day, while Trump is dragged through the mud every day.
Because they are evil demons who want to seize power.
I agree with Stiv, by the way, who has 8 million subscribers, young Americans just like him. There are educated people, but no active Trump supporters or neutral independents. And a lot of Democrats listen to him too, which is especially nice. And here is the only independent Democrat in the Senate. That is, a Democrat who, on one hand, is in the party, but on the other hand, says what he thinks. So John Fetterman and his reaction to what is happening in Los Angeles.
You can't protect when people start setting things on fire, damaging buildings, or harassing law enforcement officers. This is neither freedom of speech nor a peaceful protest. I strongly support immigration. We must find a path forward. Both things must be true at the same time, and that's the point.
Do you think Democrats are reacting inadequately?
No, I'm not judging any of my party colleagues. I'm just saying that, in this matter, 2 things must be true. In other words, you must speak up on these matters and address them accurately. What do you mean? Look at the people who see this footage and do such things. Stop spilling, stop setting fires, stop setting fires. This is not a protest. This is destructive. This is ours. It's simply unacceptable.
So basically, do you want more people in your party to condemn this?
No, what I'm saying is that we really should have learned a lesson. We should have learned this lesson back in 2020. Absolutely. The outrage over what happened to Georgia Floyd was justified. But that never means you can support or stay silent when there is destruction, disorder, devastation, looting, and things like that happening. That's the point.
4 times the reporter tried to get the senator to condemn Trump, and 4 times he got the same answer. If someone is setting the city on fire, they need to be stopped, regardless of whether you agree with their views or not. Interestingly, Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, decided to intervene and support the riots. She said that this is happening because the United States of America imposed taxes on wages, on the money that Mexicans earn, which they send or wire to their relatives in Mexico. And now you will hear Kristi Noem, our Minister of Internal Security, well, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, probably, in Russian.
I don't know, but Kristi, could you comment on this?
Absolutely. In 2020, I was the governor of the neighboring state to Tim Walz, and I watched as he let his city burn. The president and I have already discussed this before, and he was not going to allow something like that to happen in another city or another community, because a bad governor made a bad decision. Claudia Sheinbaum called for new protests in Los Angeles, which I condemn. She shouldn't encourage the violent protests that are happening right now. People are allowed to protest peacefully, but the violence we're seeing is unacceptable, and it won't happen in America. This president protects ordinary Americans who want to safely take their children to school every day, run their small businesses, and provide for their families.
These are precisely the steps he's pursuing.
He has all the constitutional authority to send the National Guard under Title X into these communities and ensure that operations run smoothly, that law enforcement officers are protected, and that they can continue to do their jobs without fear of being injured, killed, or humiliated. And so they can return home to their families in the evenings.
That's why
I'm proud of the president for activating the National Guard and sending in the Marines, because these Marines are trained to meet the needs of Los Angeles.
And now the revolutionary president of Mexico herself, the anti-capitalist Claudia.
Because if necessary, we will mobilize. Because if needed, we will take to the streets. Because we don't want taxes to be imposed on the money transfers our compatriots send from the United States to Mexico.
The United States and Mexico don't want this. These protests and riots are much worse than many of us can imagine. I find this statement by the president alarming, especially considering the long history of cultural attempts to reclaim this part of the United States. This is an article from Wikipedia called Reconquista, which you may have heard of. It's about attempts by Mexicans, as I understand it, to reclaim lands that, according to them, were illegally taken from them. And now when the president of Mexico calls these violent rebels in America heroes, it makes you think, maybe this guy's actually telling the truth. We'll come back to this story, because this guy explains exactly what we're talking about. They're not here because they're outraged by procedural rights violations by the other side. They're here because they're reclaiming land that they believe was stolen from them.
From my point of view, in 20 or 30 years, California will be more than 50% Latino, and they'll elect a Latino governor, a Latino assembly. Well, that's Congress, packed with Republicans, Congress. I mean the local one, so to speak, yes. Mexicans could vote, separate from the United States of America and become independent, or unite with Mexico. So by the year 2050, problems of this kind could arise not only in Europe, but also in the United States of America. Our sheriffs, our police department leaders, I don't know how to say it in Russian, maybe it's better to say police departments, really don't like this.
When you have politicians who encourage this, who don't call things by their proper names, specifically criminal activity, who lie to all of us, the media lies, and they deliberately use the word peaceful.
If you look at the public organization that distributes these flyers, it's the Party of Socialism and Liberation, which, and I'm not joking, is actually a communist party.
Mass protests and organized riots all over downtown Los Angeles. The Los Angeles Police Department is completely overwhelmed. Dozens of officers have been injured. Their police cars have been destroyed. For 3 nights in a row, lawlessness has reigned in Los Angeles. And now we are learning much more about those behind this, who is organizing and funding all of this. Yesterday, the chief of police of Los Angeles held a press conference and admitted that this is all a planned operation. He said that these rioters do not just appear on their own. These are paid activists and provocateurs who are brought in by planes and buses every time such events happen from city to city.
Look at what he said. They're wearing hoodies, they're wearing masks. These people are doing this, constantly avoiding responsibility, doing everything they can, moving from one case of civil unrest to another, often using the same or similar tactics, and they are connected to each other. Some people call them anarchists or something else, but these are the people we regularly encounter from city to city, and this is what they do. So what's even more disgusting is that many of those who do this come from other places just to harm people and spread chaos.
We've already discussed this. The squads are organized in large cities, trained, well paid, and are used by the Democratic Party to destabilize society and the situation in the country. But so far, they haven't really succeeded at all. The people, no matter what they do, are still for Trump.
These groups are very well organized and well funded. The mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, accidentally admitted on air yesterday that these people have some sort of rapid response network, rapid response forces, which they send out every time someone tries to serve one of their felony arrest warrants. Then the protesters meet and surround them. Somehow they find out about their operations protecting the illegals from... warns them? How do they find out about the actions? Incredible. Look.
This happened last night. I'll tell you that everything is calm right now, but we don't know where and when the next raids will be. That's the problem, because people in the city have a rapid response network. If they see immigration and customs enforcement, they come out and protest. That's simply a recipe for unnecessary chaos. Nothing was happening here. Los Angeles was calm until Friday. When we find out where and when they will be held...
Other raids? Yesterday, 13 of them were caught at the scene of the crime, live on air, as they watched men in a black truck drive up to the center of these protests. Usually cars can't just drive through these protesters. However, this black vehicle drove right into the center, unloaded a batch of equipment, bionic protective face shields, which were immediately distributed to all the protesters. Fox says this isn't something someone can just buy wholesale.
Look, they've cleared the highway, 101. Maybe they're not there, but there are already a lot of people there. They weren't caught off guard, the crowd that's gathered here.
I mean, I want to say that was a great shot we got of those people, and your cameraman just gave us an excellent angle. The box that was left on which you could see the brand of those masks. I mean, that's not the thing. Thank you for noticing it there. It looks like it's called a bionic shield. I mean, it's not something you buy in bulk unless you're planning to do something with it. And the fact that they're literally handing them out like candy to everyone says that these people are probably planning to stay here for a long time.
Well, now we'll find out who's behind this, who's funding and organizing all of it, and I hope you're sitting down. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, chair of the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability, reveals one of the groups behind all of this and their future plans, stating that Saturday, June 14th in 4 days, is the main event. It is then, according to her, that a larger-scale plan will be put into action.
Who is behind all these crazy riots in Los Angeles and those that will sweep across the country? Remember how it was during the Summer of Love? Do you remember who organized all of that back then? A man named Neville Singham is specifically involved in this, financing all of it. He got rich by spreading communist Chinese propaganda and became a billionaire from it. Now he is financing, and it is this man who is behind all these protests. He was also involved in the protests at Columbia University promoting all this nonsense. If you remember, if you look at the social organization that is distributing these flyers, it's the Party for Socialism and Liberation, which, and I'm not joking, is an actual communist party. So they are using Latin Americans, illegal immigrants, trying to stir people up, pretending that they care, but in reality they don't care at all.
We know that each of these protesters is being paid.
And that means that most of the violent riots we see in Los Angeles were bought and paid for by us, the American taxpayers. Thanks to the Biden administration, though this is rarely discussed. And what about all the damage in downtown Los Angeles? How much money are these people causing in damages? Who is going to pay for the repairs and restoration of all this to rebuild everything from scratch? We will be the ones doing that. For years they have persecuted and prosecuted Americans who simply showed up on January 6th, bringing all of them to justice. These people received many years in prison, holding them accountable, but we still don't see anyone being held responsible for the riots. The Summer of Love, 2020. No accountability existed. I think Trump really has a chance now. A small window of time to act decisively, to bring in overwhelming force, invoke the Insurrection Act, arrest all these masked rioters, and conduct a real large-scale investigation. Like in Rick's case, find out who is paying and organizing all this, hold this group accountable, make them pay for the damages, and put them through a parade of shame.
Exactly. Find them and make them pay to the last penny for the destruction, for the time the police were used, for the costs. Yes, for sending out 2,000 guardsmen, 700 Marines, there will be even more guardsmen. Let them pay for more, for the overturned cars, for the looted stores. Make them pay in full once, and sit. Everyone should sit. Sit for a long time. And next time they'll think, everyone will think, maybe even 12 times.
We know that these major left-leaning billionaires are funding many such NGOs. Soros, Reid Hoffman. I'm not saying they're directly involved in this, but they really do fund a lot of these NGOs. Someone is doing this, someone is paying for it. President Trump last night sent another 2,000 National Guard troops to Los Angeles, bringing the total to more than 4,000. He also has 700 Marines on standby in case they're needed. Yesterday, he posted an EX. We made an excellent decision by sending the National Guard to deal with the violent riots in California. If we hadn't done that, Los Angeles would have been completely destroyed. The extremely incompetent Governor Gavin Newsom and Mayor Karen Bass should have said, "Thank you, President Trump. You are so wonderful. Without you, we would be nothing, sir." Instead, they prefer to lie to the residents of California and all of America, claiming that we weren't needed and that these were peaceful protests. It's enough to just look at the photos and videos of the violence and destruction to understand everything you need to know. We will always do whatever is necessary to ensure the safety of our citizens so that together we can make America great again. Meanwhile, the traditional media keep trying to convince us that these protests are mostly peaceful. Actually, it's even funny now. They think we're that stupid. And you know, if Elon Musk hadn't bought X, maybe this manipulation would have actually worked. This morning, several sheriffs in Southern California said, "Enough." Sheriff Bianco from Riverside, California, delivered sharp criticism toward Governor Newsom, telling him to shut up. Everything he does only makes these riots worse, adding, "Democrats encourage this. They encourage it. And it's anything but peaceful."
Well, it's anything but peaceful.
Democratic Congresswoman Maxine Waters is holding a press conference to tell Americans that the videos and messages you are seeing are fake. These are all cheap fakes, she says. That there is no violence, that there are no fires, that not a single car is burning, no one is being set on fire, no one has been hurt, that she was at the scene and everything was peaceful. Don't believe your lying eyes. Yes, it's true. She really said that today. Look, no one was
shot. No one was killed. Remember that. And when martial law is imposed, what will you say? Don't misunderstand. The National Guard being called in doesn't mean there was violence. There wasn't any violence. I was on the street, I know. And I left the temporary detention center and went back to the neighborhood. I was talking to people. What happened in Paramount? What happened in Compton? What happened in Inglewood? So first of all, figure things out for yourself and don't just rely on what people tell you or on the few cases you've seen.
This woman represents California's 43rd Congressional District, located in Los Angeles. This is the district she represents. She represents Los Angeles, a city that is currently being actively robbed. This is just madness, and she is not just some ordinary congresswoman. Maxine Waters is in the leadership.
Next. Asks a question that I have been asking myself and you gentlemen for quite a long time.
What do you think? Why are they fighting so fiercely to keep these disturbances going? They must understand that this is not popular. They must understand that everyone knows we're just being led by the nose. Everyone can see what's really going on. So why are they doing this? Why are they all supporting it? It seems like they really don't want A's to be in Los Angeles, as if there's something important there that they're trying to protect. If A's gets there, they'll find it. They'll destroy it. What is it?
Right, Ardzai? So why is there such resistance? Why are they fighting so hard for this unpopular decision to protect criminals from deportation? Why? Well, according to the federal authorities, the next phase of these riots is scheduled for June 14. And they were preparing something in case Trump wins. We were always surprised that when Trump won at first, we thought the riots would start immediately. No, something didn't work out for them, or maybe the country was ready, but it just didn't happen. But now they, so to speak, set it up. They were waiting for some kind of trigger, as it's called, and the trigger happened. Raids, that is, these are special police units in Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, 10% of Los Angeles, which has a population of over 10 million people. Gentlemen, they are illegal immigrants. And in addition to that, I think there are a couple of million more who are, well, more or less here legally. Okay, so Trump will win. Trump has won. And now they're putting into action what they've been preparing. And the culmination, at least of this stage, is on June 14th.
The thing is, the scale, scope, and reach of the operations to enforce immigration laws that took place in Los Angeles were truly unusual and unprecedented. Starting right here from this Home Depot in Cypress Park at about 7 o'clock, 7:15, 7:30 in the morning on Friday. And why exactly did they lead to these protests? Overall, Los Angeles is what's called a city where minorities make up the majority in a state where minorities also make up the majority. There are now more people of color living in Los Angeles than white people, and many of them are undocumented. According to some estimates, 10% of the population of Los Angeles County, one of the largest counties and the most populous in the United States, is undocumented. That could be up to 1 million people.
In the White House, gentlemen, we have a strong and decisive president. Minister of Internal Affairs Christina Noem was an excellent governor and knows how to lead. And as for the National Guardsmen, well, I think there are enough of them for all the hotspots that the Democrats will try to stir up. But still, political democracy is an incorrect way to structure society. A better system has already been invented. It's called market democracy. I'll try to explain it in a couple of words. And it combines the best of the free market and the kind of democracy where you choose a manager to run an industry, not a ruler to govern you. This isn't Marx, the founder of social reforms, and it's not Thomas Paine, the father of our Declaration of Independence, the founder of what we now call modern capitalism. This is something created in the second half of the 20th century in the United States of America at the Institute for Free Enterprise by an absolutely brilliant person, Andrew Joseph Columbus. And he wrote this. This is called, that is, the science of the interaction of beings who possess freedom of choice, freedom of will. Faster, yes, here. By the way, on a separate channel called Roadmap to Freedom, I talk a lot about this system, how it is built, its sources, and things like that, which, of course, is the future, at least for the United States of America, and possibly, I hope, for the whole world. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let's wrap it up here for now. So to speak, about 4,000 National Guardsmen are on their way or have already been sent to Los Angeles. I think that number will be enough for us. Well, we'll see. But as I already said, let's wait until June 14th and see what happens.